We need to start the conversation. We need to have some, neurodivergent leaders at the top of organizations sharing their story, celebrating the strengths and the triumphs, but also talking openly and candidly about some of the barriers that they faced along the way. And as you say, I think it gives people hope. There's these misconceptions that individuals who are neurodivergent don't want to climb the ladder. And that might be the case for some individuals, but I'm speaking to more and more individuals who want to break free of that mold, free of that stereotype. They want to climb the ladder. And how do they do that? So we need inspiration. We need Aussie inspiration. There's been some awesome, well-known leaders. We've got the Richard Bransons, the Lord Sugars, Charlotte in Denmark, but we need to start seeing, I think, some Aussie-owned, Aussie-branded ND leadership to help drive that conversation as well.
Welcome to Princess and the Pea podcast, a show by neurodivergent women for neurodivergent women. I'm your host, Annie Crow, and I'm an autistic ADHDer who likes to talk a lot about neurodiversity. I started this podcast so I could share meaningful conversations that explore the lives of autistic and ADHD folk like myself. We talk about everything from employment to healthcare, education, parenting, relationships and more, but all in a neuro-spicy light. Before we kick off, I just wanted to add a quick content warning for little ears. This podcast will be discussing mental health issues and serious adult business. So chuck on your headphones and grab a cup of tea. And as Bluey likes to say, let's do this. Today's guest is one of my favourite humans to follow on LinkedIn, sharing endless amazing content on all things neurodiversity and employment. Kate is the Principal Neurodiversity Consultant at Employ for Ability, which is an innovative social business focused on helping organisations understand the benefits of hiring neurodivergent people as a part of their social inclusion and diversity programs. Her team, along with founder David Smith, provides managers and neurotypical staff with autism awareness training and coaching, and they also work with neurodivergent individuals to provide employment coaching. Kate is helping move the conversation away from a deficit-based focus towards showcasing our unique neurodivergent strengths and skills that make us fantastic employees in the right environment. And she's neurodivergent herself. So she truly speaks our language and understands the barriers we face in a neurotypical dominated workforce. In today's episode, I basically have my own coaching/therapy session with Kate, sharing all my dirty laundry from the challenges I faced when I was entering the workforce, and getting Kate's marvelous insights into some of the main barriers we face as neurodivergent individuals and how we can overcome them. I think you're really going to enjoy this one. We talk about everything from recruitment to leadership, rejection sensitivity, communication differences, psychological safety at work, self-advocacy, flexible work practices, masking, and more. It's a jam-packed episode, and we are both very passionate ADHDers. So buckle in. Hi, Kate. Thanks for joining us on the show. It's great to have you here.
Oh, thank you. Really excited to be here.
So good. Let's jump into it. I've got so many questions for you. Can you tell us a bit about what you do as Principal Neurodiversity Consultant at Employ for Ability?
Yeah, sure. So I'm fairly new to the role at Employ for Ability, and the organisation itself is actually fairly new as well. So it's only about 3 years old, but it's growing at a really rapid pace at the moment. And the founder, David Smith, was actually recently a finalist in the Telstra Business Awards, making it all the way to the very last stage, which was exciting. So it's nice to know the work that he and the team are doing in this space is getting recognised. So David, particularly when he first started the business, there is still quite a large emphasis on the SLES, the School Leaver Employment Support Program, which I think is brilliant.
Yeah.
And he really saw a gap, particularly in the ACT. And David also talks openly about one of his children, Ollie, who's also on the spectrum. Yeah. And some of the, I guess, the humor and the amazing strengths that he can see firsthand as well. So I think that's driven him with that passion
So good to see.
to create this. And I think that's, as you'd know as well, when you get these really amazing, meaningful outcomes, because it's more than just a job, he's trying to create change. So
Absolutely.
he's doing a lot of work. I said in Canberra with this LES, with this school leaver support program, and for me, really working with a new, I guess, cohort of talent within this space, which is really untapped in a lot of Australia as well, and starting to actually expand that program and that model around Australia. So I've come on. I've known Dave for quite a while now. We do share similar values and passions from that perspective. So
Yeah.
it was really exciting when this opportunity kind of came to fruition in the end. But a large part of my role is advocacy. It's I guess about that capacity building and awareness piece and creating change within, I guess, that neurodiversity employment space as well.
Absolutely. Very important work and very, very impressive. I love following the work you and Dave do. It's so good to have people like you on our team. And obviously being neurodivergent yourself as well, that's, love, just great to hear.
I think it helps drive passion, doesn't it? That lived experience.
Yeah, keep you in the family. It's great.
Absolutely.
So I know you've got a bit of a passion for neurodiverse leadership, which I also love. So can you tell us a bit about building neurodiverse leadership within the workforce?
Yeah, so you're right. It is a particular area that I've almost become a little fascinated in at the moment because it has become evident to me just through a lot of the discussions that I'm having with individuals I might be coaching or supporting that there is a lot of focus on recruitment, which I think is brilliant and 100% needed, particularly here in Australia where we've got such a long way to go in bridging that unemployment gap.
Oh, yeah.
But there's not really a lot of talk or focus on not just retention, but those opportunities to keep climbing the corporate ladder. We don't hear a lot of stories about neurodivergent
Absolutely.
leadership. And I think that's really sad. And I think until we have that, we're not going to see that systemic cultural change that we need within
I
organizations.
completely agree.
It's such a loss because we know that individuals who are neurodivergent, they bring that authenticity. We know that there's that demonstrated empathy, that innovation, that creativity, that out of box
Mm,
thinking. So to me, it's such a missed opportunity not to have individuals who are neurodivergent representing on boards, and it's something that I would like to see change.
yeah, me too. I'm very, very passionate about that myself because especially in the disability sector, we're constantly fighting just to get support to have less unemployment and less underemployment. And I mean, a part of underemployment is letting us live up to our potential and supporting us in doing that. But I think another, like one step further, is really getting people into those leadership positions to really affect, systemic change. And also to give those of us who are, lower down on the totem pole some inspiration. Julia Gillard, when she was our first PM, it was just amazing to finally say we've had a woman in office. We need that in all walks of life, in all minorities. Representation, I think, is so important, and I love how you put it. All those wonderful traits about our people, and just the integrity we have, and the good-hearted nature we have. I think. I mean, I feel like we'd be great leaders.
Oh, I mean, there's absolutely no argument for me, and you
Yeah,
probably know me. You follow me on LinkedIn,
I
so I
do.
have
I
been
do.
posting a bit
Big
lately.
fan.
But I guess so. We need to start the conversation. We need to have some, neurodivergent leaders at the top of organisations sharing their story, celebrating, the strengths and the triumphs, but also talking openly and candidly about some of the barriers that they faced along the way. And as you say, I think it gives people hope. Stereotypically, well, there's these misconceptions that individuals who are neurodivergent don't want to climb the ladder,
Mm,
and that might be the case for some individuals. But I'm speaking to more and more individuals who want to break, free of that mold, free of that stereotype. They want to climb the ladder, and
absolutely.
how do they do that? So we need inspiration. We need Aussie inspiration. There's been some awesome
Yes.
well-known leaders. We've got the Richard Bransons, the Lord Sugars, Charlotte in Denmark, but we need to start seeing, I think, some Aussie-owned, Aussie-branded ND leadership to help drive that conversation as well.
I agree. And obviously like it's so good that we're even having this conversation because I think it does show the direction we're heading and how far we have come. But at the same time, I think you're absolutely right. And the other thing that I give a lot of thought to is it's great to see that there are more current leaders who are openly talking about their neurodivergence, after a career of maybe not feeling safe to disclose. And that, I think, is this big step that needs to happen. But the next step for me that I am so desperate to see is actually watching someone go from a junior employment job, openly disclosing, and I don't know, I don't like the word disclosure, sharing. What are we disclosing? It's nothing to be ashamed of. But it's also a safety thing, right? Openly sharing their neurodivergence and actually still reaching those goals no matter what, because they're still humans. They have the same amount of values and challenges. The only real challenges we have as neurodivergent people is that we live in a world that's not set up for us, like most minorities. And I just can't wait until it becomes the norm that ADHD and autistic individuals are just killing it in the workforce, getting on boards, getting in government, getting in power, and helping really shift the narrative and kill all those stereotypes and stigma that we're trying desperately to dismantle.
Yeah, I feel like we're on the way. We're on the right path. We've still got so far to go. But I mean, I've been working in this space coming up to about 9 years now, and I can't believe the shift and the change, and that there's opportunities to connect with you and to have this discussion. Hopefully, people will listen and people will take something from that as well. But the reality is, there are
Completely agree.
still so many challenges. We're having, as I said, there's finally a lot of focus on that recruitment side, but really very little discussion about the challenges. So I completely agree. And I want to see senior management, executive buy-in, sponsorship for programs as well. I want to see that awareness and that champion kind of concept coming right from the top.
Definitely.
As well, I want to see like neurodivergence and neurodiversity policies prioritized in D&I policies, and not necessarily that tick the box, but I
Yes.
want it to, as we said, systemic cultural
No
change.
tokenism.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I totally agree. And in saying that, I think I mentioned on our last one of our recent episodes the talk about how there's a few autistic specific roles being recruited for. Not, I don't think they're in the cities that you and David are. No, it won't name names, but they do such great onboarding and recruitment for autistic individuals, and then it kind of drops off. And then we talk about retention and valuing these employees and continually supporting them, not just at the introduction.
100%.
And that's where I guess my interest is probably a little bit more focused on, because I think it's a missed area, and I don't blame people for it. I think that it's because of the barriers, right? It's the lack of knowledge that all of these people have on how to actually continually support their autistic staff. What can you talk to some of the barriers that you see facing people to try and be valued at work, I guess?
Well, and it's interesting, kind of, you touch on retention. I think that's the whole concept of, again, it's
Mm,
not just the recruitment. We've actually got to, recognize and appreciate the fact that there is already so much neurodivergent talent within organizations. Some people might not be
absolutely.
aware. Some people are aware but don't feel comfortable disclosing, and some have disclosed. So that's the reality. And I've been really fortunate that with my work and my role with Employ for Ability, that's what I'm actually doing quite a lot of at the moment.
That's great.
I'm coming in and working with individuals. And I kind of love, though, that I have seen an increase in this, particularly from the fact that hopefully more people are feeling confident to have those discussions, because I think that often is the key. And, you said before, the word disclosure, but,
Yes,
talking openly about their neurodivergence. But I personally think it is, there's so many positive outcomes that can come from that. The
absolutely.
changes and so forth that are often required need to happen anyway for any employee, regardless of the fact of, whether or not you're
Yes,
neurodivergent or
so
not.
true.
But it's the conversation. If it pushes people to think in a different way and to start having those conversations, then I think there's benefits from all. And we've got this great resignation, this huge skill gap at the moment. And again, employers need to actually shift their focus and go, okay, what can we do to support and retain the current staff within our organisation
Hmm.
as a separate kind of avenue, along with obviously get the talent to fill the roles as well. But it's being overlooked. So
Absolutely.
I think there's lots of things organizations can do. Again, the similar theme here in all these conversations is that it costs nothing normally.
Yeah.
Education, awareness, capacity building is often key. For
Hmm.
me, one of the huge keys to having those longer retention rates, you obviously talked about that back end support, but in the first instance, actually making sure the neurodivergent individuals within your organization are in meaningful employment.
Absolutely.
That's the other thing. A lot of the individuals I work with are so highly talented. Yes, some of them might need some support with soft skills, but I really want to see their skills recognized. It's not about making the job easier for them. These individuals can do the job. If they've demonstrated that, but perhaps they need some tweaks and some changes. So, with that education,
Hmm.
that's key to actually helping the manager understand you've got to ask the right questions. You've got to be prepared to listen. You've got to be aware that those changes or those, accommodations can change from
Mm.
time to time as well.
Oh, that's such an important point, because that's something that I think a lot of people struggle to understand when they, especially with autism, is that they think that, if you've got maybe issues with loud noises, then you always have issues with loud noises. But actually, as someone myself with sensory issues around noises, is it's very fluid. Sometimes I can't stand even the slightest noise, and other times I almost crave loud noises. Like if it's my favorite song, I'll turn it up full blast and sing at the top of my lungs. But if it's a screaming baby or a loud engine going past and I'm having a stressful day, then it's so much more painful. And so I love that you said that, because these things are not fixed. And I think the complexity in that makes it really hard when you're trying to educate managers to understand that and to embrace it and support it. And the other thing that I love what you and Dave do with, strengths based focus. I'm all for acknowledging the struggles of our neurodivergent kin. But at the same time, for our mental health and our success in life, I think it's so important to really focus in on our strengths and not make it all about just fixing where we struggle. Because as I'm sure you experience with all your clients, if you're focusing on where you are not doing well constantly, not only is that demeaning and sort of pulling you down, but also it affects your mental health and it affects your ability to show up and do your job well and to shine. There's just so many things that kind of negative focus is not helpful for anyone.
Well, it's all about perspectives, isn't it? And again, that's a big part of my messaging is flipping the script, flipping the narrative on how we perceive individuals. And it's again, whether you're, on the spectrum, whether you're neurodivergent, whether you're neurotypical, it's about taking the time to actually understand the
Absolutely.
person. And a really easy example is, someone might observe or say, that particular individual in my team who's on the spectrum, I've noticed that they're really skeptical and they're always asking a lot of questions. So I guess the concept around that is how do you actually flip that? So how do we see that as a strength? Well, actually, perhaps they're really inquisitive. They're asking a lot of questions because they're really trying to get to the nitty gritty, and that's the way their brain works. And as a result, we might see some really positive outcomes. We might see innovation, out of the box thinking. They might be actually good at finding errors or improving processes to make them much more streamlined. So it's all in perspective from the, and that's
Mm,
us. That's where we have these unconscious bias, or we need to, look at things from a different perspective. And I think that's where that concept of a strength-based approach comes from as well.
absolutely.
We're honest, we know that many neurodivergent individuals do experience challenges, just like neurotypical individuals as well. But it's how we harness the strengths
Exactly.
and how we harness those strengths from a career perspective into the right role. And sometimes we need to do a little bit of job carving. It's not making the job easier, it's playing to the individual's strengths. And again, that should happen across any team. That's the reality of what a good manager does.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, and I think that's another area that I guess I wanted to ask you about. Is the other thing that I think about a lot is, I was only diagnosed at 27 years old, no, 28. I just turned 28 when I was diagnosed 3 years ago, and I spent the majority of my early career completely unaware of my neurodivergence and really suffering because of it, because I couldn't understand my brain. I had complex mental health from that struggle. So, and obviously, this is a very common thing in women, right? We're late diagnosed. What about, I mean, for me, it's like if we help everyone, we'll all be lifted up and all workplaces will benefit, right? But I guess part of me worries about if we're just focusing on people who have labels and diagnoses, what about, 22-year-old me starting her grad job and already knowing that I would not be good at full-time work. I literally did my law thesis on flexible work practices in law firms because I was convinced that I wanted to be flexible and wouldn't be able to while still killing it at work.
Ahead of your time.
Yeah, right. And back then I had a feminist slant, but yeah, clearly it wasn't that wasn't quite the issue for me. How do people advocate when they might not know their own disability or their own differences? Back then, even though I didn't have all these labels and know all of this stuff, which is so helpful, especially for self-advocacy, I still knew fundamentally what I didn't want to do. And I had to do, for instance, my grad year full time. I've worked full time for the first few years on and off in my career, but there's no way I would have even bothered to ask the graduate recruitment team if I could work part time in my grad year. Like, that's such a competitive job, and you want to be fighting at the top with no differences, and yet where's the flexibility and diversity in that? And I mean, for me, I hope that grad jobs of today are actually recruiting a diverse workforce that maybe can't fit their perfect structured 10, 12-month grad program. I
Yeah.
digress, but that was a long question.
Yeah, I'm with you. I'm with you. I think like it comes down to, again, I know I sound like a broken record, but it comes down to awareness, capacity building. I can tell you every single time I run a general kind of autism 101 or neurodiversity general awareness training, even if there's 10 people sitting in on my session, I can guarantee you I'll get at least one or two emails from individuals going, wow, I've just had that aha light bulb moment. I always knew I was different, but I've just ticked so many of those boxes, and I'm going to go and see someone or other individuals saying,
Amazing.
I do have a diagnosis, but I've never felt compelled to talk about it. But they can now see from that strength-based approach, it's something to be celebrated.
Oh, so good.
I mean, again, as we said, at the end of the day, 22-year-old you, I think a lot of people in general struggle in their 20s to find themselves. It's such
That's true.
an interesting place to be. And I look back at myself, and I share very, a lot of similarities with you from that perspective. And I fumbled
Yeah.
along the way. And
Mm.
entering my 30s, I started to actually, as corny as it sounds, but start to find myself, work out how I work best. I created my
Yeah.
structure and my routine. I'm obsessed in color coding.
Amazing.
I've accepted things that stress me out, things that are my triggers, my stress. I love the
Mm.
concept of energy accounting to work out what's really draining my energy and to actually accept that that's okay and it might look different for someone else. Then
Absolutely.
that awareness of how do I fill back up that tank as well.
Mm.
And it comes down to education, and then getting that diagnosis really doesn't change things for a lot of people, but I think it gives that sense of worth, that validation to go, okay, right. And we keep doing things the way we've done it, or we might take a deep dive and learn a lot more and continually have those light bulb moments of
Yes,
bells.
true.
But if organizations proactively sort out, organizations like us, there's so many on the market to actually come in and
Mm-hmm.
deliver that awareness training. You start the conversation internally, and it's that thinking again of it's not just benefiting the neurodivergent colleagues or employees within the organization. Those tweaks, those changes are universal. They benefit everyone. So there's so many positives. As we said, it often costs nothing. And that would have really helped you, your younger self from that perspective.
Oh my gosh, yes. Oh, if I could have had you come in when I was a grad, I just please rewind the last decade. No, that's so great to hear, and I love that you're taking that angle because a lot of, well, it's not a lot, but some of the stuff I see on offer is very targeted at just supporting neurodivergent workers or just supporting managers of neurodivergent employees. And the thing that worries me about that is it's not a widespread awareness and education and inclusion. So I like that you said that you talk to multiple people, not necessarily neurodivergent people, because how many of them are sitting there unaware of their own neurodivergence or their family's neurodivergence, or even just their own team members that maybe don't even know themselves. Like there's such an issue in the health system right now with access to diagnosis. And so I feel like you're almost helping that in a way, because that spreading of education and awareness is getting more people to have the aha moments that might send them down the path of actually researching it and realizing that it's so much more than what we all might initially think from, the Rain Man stereotypes of the world. Even, Love on the Spectrum, which I have tried to watch multiple times and I can't do it.
Yeah.
The reason I even try is my neurotypical friends tell me about it and how great it is. So I'm like, okay, well, I'll watch it. But I just don't feel represented in it.
No. Oh.
I don't want to criticize the show. I think the fact that it exists is all education is positive, right?
Yeah, I must say I'm a huge fan of the show
Are you?
because of the fact that it gets people talking, and it's going away from the Rain Man. It's going away from
That's a good point.
that Big Bang Theory. I'm all for starting the conversation.
Mm-hmm.
Same as we've got Love on the Spectrum, we've got Employable Me. I think for so many people, we forget because we live and breathe, and this is our special interest.
True.
But for so many people, they're not exposed. So
Mm-hmm.
for me, if it just gets one person
Yeah.
thinking about it more or having empathy and that awareness.
Yeah.
So yeah, maybe I'm biased.
No, I think that's such a good point. And I think you're right. It's so easy to forget, we're so deeply in this community that if for us, we see all the nuances that might not be so clean in how it's produced or spoken about. How do you go about helping workplaces understand neuroaffirming language and, how to really make their employees feel like it is a difference and not a disorder, and really help shift that focus into the positive in a more practical way, I guess?
Yeah. So again, it is education and training and
Yeah,
allowing people to also understand that each and every individual who is neurodivergent is going to present differently,
true.
and they're going to have different preferences over language as well. If LinkedIn, we always, often see debates about person first, identity first, and
Yes.
everyone has different preferences. So I think it again comes down to that awareness piece to actually understand that everyone does have a different preference, within that space, just like pronouns and so forth for individuals as well. And I love the fact that we can take the time to consider other people's preferences and to, I guess, show more emotion and empathy from that perspective as well. But often people don't think about it till there's that opportunity to have the discussion, to sit and have training and then walk away and go, wow, maybe we should be having that conversation with a team member that we're aware is neurodivergent, to actually ask them, hey, what am I like as a manager?
Yes.
Could I do things differently? Am I presenting information in a way that works for you? What's your preferred communication? Would you actually prefer me to send you instructions via email rather than just saying them through the Zoom teleconference? Again, costs nothing, but you're just literally taking the time to go, wow, actually everyone's different. Everyone's, presenting in a different way, has their own unique ways of working. And let's actually recognize that, I guess.
Absolutely. Yeah, and broaden our minds to how there is so much diversity in communication as well. I love what you mentioned about pronouns, because for me, another thing that I talk to people about is with disclosure or sharing your diagnosis at work. A lot of the time, and this has definitely been my experience, but more broadly, I see there's a lot of women that talk to me about this, is that they go into work, they tell them, I'm autistic and ADHD, and work's so lovely about it. Yep, cool. How can we help? But then I guess the weight is still on them to get into the more nitty gritty details about how that could affect work and what maybe adjustments they need, because so many workplaces aren't equipped. I would just love all workplaces to have like a go-to policy of these are the themes that you might want to address with your neurodiverse employees. Like, are you meeting their sensory profile needs? Are you communicating in a way that's helpful to their mental health? And there's not even that framework in so many of these workplaces. And so even though there's this really positive embrace, I guess, that they give you when you well, hopefully everyone's experiencing that.
Yeah.
But most people I've heard from do. It just sort of stops there. And I mean, for me, you don't get someone to tell you their pronouns and then just ask them why they made that decision or what does that actually mean, right? But yet when we're asked, okay, you're autistic, but how? Like, or a lot of women especially get the, oh, but you don't look autistic, or oh, you can't be autistic, which
Mm,
people think is a compliment.
those misconceptions.
Yeah, misconceptions, when it's actually rather insulting because there is no look, and we all
Mm.
externally show our autistic traits very differently and sometimes barely at all. So I guess, how do you find that balance, or how would you recommend to your clients to try to sort of openly say where they might need support without feeling like they have to really expose their deepest vulnerabilities and struggles, especially like maybe if you're in a new workplace and you don't have that really trusting relationship yet? And I don't know, how do you sort of talk about
Mm.
what your needs are without also, I guess, needing to justify how bad you experience something? Like if I say I prefer emails, but I can do phone calls like in emergency or if it's necessary, and then my boss calls me without an emergency, obviously then I'd say, well, can we do an email, right? But if that's happening multiple times, how, is it on me to say, so I don't like phone calls because I have an auditory processing issue and I have to use a lot of mental energy to try and
Yeah.
hear what you're saying, especially if I can't see your lips. And on top of that, I have ADHD and working memory issues, so I probably forget half of what you say. And then I feel anxious about that because I need to remember it and go do whatever you've spoken to me about. So there's like, and that's only the top of the iceberg of why I don't enjoy phone calls for work. But, how much do they just have to accept this is our preference versus, well, do you really need that? How
Yeah.
is it like a no-brainer? Yeah.
Yeah, it's a great question. I think the reality is that we still do have a long way to go as far as that educating managers to understand. And I think a good manager wants to learn. They'll put up their hand and go, "I'm sorry, I had no idea that for you, the screech of a baby actually causes physical pain." It's the education. A good manager has empathy and understands that. What I really try to do and empower with clients I work with is to be able to advocate for themselves, because doesn't necessarily just mean vocally advocating,
True.
but to actually stop for a minute and get some paper, start to actually think about how you work best. What type of managers have you worked best with? What was their style of working with you? What don't I like in roles, or what do I like in roles? And start to compile that list. And, at Employ for Ability, we've created a tool that allows us to come in when we're working with clients and to have that one-to-one with the neurodivergent individual and to pull apart their strengths, and also to actually have a look at some of the challenges. They don't have to share that. They can keep it for themselves and they can continually use it as a working document and edit it whenever they require. And as things change, things might become more relevant or less relevant and so forth. But if they feel comfortable, that could even be something they could have the environment's right to actually sit down with their boss or with the supervisor and to say, as you're aware, identify as being on the autism spectrum. I want to, educate you or just talk to you a little bit about how I experience the world. And again, to focus and have your conversation from a positive.
I love that.
You might have noticed that the things in my job I do really well are X, Y, and Z, but sometimes on the flip side, and then X, Y, and Z, you know what I mean? So to actually be able to advocate, but come from a strength-based, let them know what you're doing really well and how that manifests in you. But we're all human.
Yes.
Naturally, there are elements of roles that we might struggle with or that don't come naturally. And just to have that awareness of
True.
me sitting in a teleconference for an hour and then going back to a few more, that might tip me over the edge. Or, I might need a break between it. Just advocating for yourself. And it doesn't have to be a lecture.
Yeah.
It just has to be little small pieces of information. You don't have to share it with the team. But I personally do love when an organization is truly inclusive and
absolutely.
And has established where you can actually feel you're in that safe environment to not just talk to your boss, but to actually advocate within your team and say, "Hi, I work with you. I'm going to tell you a little bit more about myself." Talk about your interests, talk about your strengths, not just from work, but talk about what excites you outside of work. It might help with small talk and other elements as well. And for them also to gauge, wow, okay, so you're quite good at that. Maybe there's other elements that we haven't yet explored within the role that you might be good at, the way your mind works and is wired and the efficiency and so forth as well. So it is hard. Again, you shouldn't have to go to that level of detail, but I'd like to think we're on that journey towards allowing for these types of conversations. If it's not with your manager, to have that type of conversation with HR, people and culture and so forth, and for it to be embraced and recognised.
Absolutely. That's so good to hear, and such an important lens, I guess, to have in feeling empowered. probably know about this as an ADHDer, but rejection sensitivity is something that especially ADHDers experience quite a bit. Some of us, I do. And a lot of ADHDers I talk to do. We bond over it all the time. And one of the things about that is any sort of even perceived rejection hits us so much more strongly and painfully than what someone without rejection sensitivity would experience. And I remember I was in my third rotation as a grad and I was doing my performance review and I got outstanding and I loved my boss. It was one of my favorite jobs. And she did the whole compliment sandwich thing, I think, where she was saying all my good stuff. Then she said one thing I needed to work on and then added some more good stuff. And the one thing I needed to work on wasn't even bad. I literally can't remember it, but it was not even.
That's what you focused on.
But oh my God, I literally, she said, are you okay? Because I teared up. Because I think I was just so braced to hear what was not going well, because I remember that was a time in my life where I was very anxious at work and heavily masking, not that I knew it. And this was a very engagement focused role. So it was a little bit out of my comfort zone, in terms of acting like I was very confident and good at engaging with people, even though I preferred not to do it face to face that often. And I remember, like, on my first week in the job, I said to my supervisor when they gave me a task to find out some information, I was like, oh, do I just email this person? And they're like, no, just pick up the phone. And I was like, oh, okay. And I went back to my desk and I just sat there like, oh my God, I don't want to talk to these people. I don't know them. I barely know the subject matter. This is going to be so painful. And I did it, we pushed through, but at a steep cost of severe anxiety and energy depletion.
And that's the problem, isn't it?
Yeah. And I just wish back then it would have been okay and I would have seen someone else in the workplace say, no, my preferred communication's email. So even though you think it might be faster to call someone, I'm just going to email them without it being questioned. I don't need to say I'm neurodivergent. I don't need to say any of that stuff, that I have anxiety. It's just a thing. Everyone has preferences. Every human likes different things, right?
100%. I think it's sometimes fear of change, or we've always done it this way.
Yes.
So why should we change it now?
Mm-hmm.
As well, but also, you can look at that from a different perspective, and perhaps your manager could have said, for whatever reason, it is actually maybe from a time critical sense,
True.
really important that you need to make phone calls. But then how about helping you develop a script?
True.
And it might be several scripts. Here's the script. If the conversation goes this way, here's the script, and practicing that. And that can often help, because I've successfully placed individuals into roles that are similar to like a call center environment where stereotypically you'd go, oh,
yeah,
I don't know how that would go with someone on the spectrum, but had really great results because, again, it's about getting to know that individual. And I find that often, not always, but often when I'm working with clients that are, diagnosed with autism, but also have that ADHD diagnosis, sometimes we see some really exciting synergies.
Yeah.
And some of those individuals have been really successful in those types of roles. So, and maybe it wasn't right for you, but there's always a solution. And if they had have just had a conversation with you, regardless of actually stating I'm neurodivergent, there's always ways to work around things. But that's where that open communication again, not making assumptions, asking you, do you have any ideas? And, and having that back and forth conversation, I think, really would have been key in that situation.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's so helpful to hear, because I think it really does push home the need to put some infrastructure in place and, help these all employees, really help them build their confidence and skills, because I actually do enjoy that type of role, but it's always takes me a little while at the start to learn the lay of the land, like all roles and all people, but in a little bit more of a anxiety ridden way, because the consequence if someone else stuffs up is, oh, well, you're learning. But the consequence I've experienced continuously, pervasively, my whole life has been, why'd you do that? That's so weird. So a lot of, masking is basically looking at, this, but looking around and watching how everyone behaves and mimicking them. And I'm really good at that, but I need time. And so, I think it was more about I was thrown into that role and I didn't know how to advocate for myself and say, oh, can you maybe give me more details about that area, or how much do I actually need to, there's so many more nuances of, if we just felt safe to ask these questions without judgment, that would be so great.
Oh, 100%.
Right?
And again, I think we're on the journey. We're on the pathway to
Absolutely.
getting there. And I think the fact that we have social media, access to the internet, and for individuals to read and learn if they're interested, and to know how to, Google search, how to approach these conversations, to go onto blogs and
Yes.
actually hear from other people with lived experience where you can relate to and have that conversation and bounce off ideas. I think we're very lucky.
Or podcasts.
Podcast, brilliant little,
Yeah.
yeah, throw that one in, absolutely. But
Yeah.
we didn't
Love
have
it.
that 20 years ago
We did
either, and
not.
people didn't talk about it.
I love Google and YouTube.
But can you imagine, like, my obsession at night is sitting there on Instagram and just reading my
Oh,
feed,
yes.
and,
Same.
looking at memes and absorbing information. But us 20 years ago, we didn't have that. So what does excite me is that I think the future is really positive. I think we're finally seeing this
Same.
shift, around the business case, around neurodiversity. We're starting to see a shift with people, as we said before, not necessarily ticking the box, but actually proactively coming to an organization such as Employ for Ability, wanting to access this talent. We've got that great resignation, the skill gap crisis we talked about earlier. But even more simply, we know that there's all this data to say, neurodivergent individuals are often found to be more productive. We see lower absenteeism. We get these loyal, honest staff. We talked about those strengths before, that out of the box thinking, identifying errors, innovation, streamlining
Mm.
processes. There's so many benefits from that perspective, but we've still just got to get organizations to come to the party, and also not just the big organizations. Yes, they should be showing us and leading the way, but we also want to, come down and have these conversations with the smaller businesses as well. And I think that's how we're going to create change, to have this messaging in the school systems as well, and to have,
Mm.
these supports like what, David and the team in Canberra are running with the SLES programs at the moment, to give people hope that there's support, that there is opportunities for them in the future
Yeah.
for meaningful employment, and really kind of focusing on their special interests, because that's such a
Yeah.
big component as well of being neurodivergent. But how can we
Mm.
actually,
And thriving.
yeah, all of those elements kind of come into key. And I think for a lot of parents there that we speak to as well, just to have that hope, because everyone wants the best for their children as
Yeah,
well, but to just
definitely.
to know that they can get meaningful employment, they can feel supported, they can disclose without that bias or those stigma and so forth as well.
Absolutely. One thing that people are going to judge me for probably is my husband, I've been with my partner since we were in second year uni, so I've far over a decade. And something that we've had conversations over the years about is that I've tried to explain to him that I can't just work. I need to do work that really makes me want to get up in the morning. And I know that that's probably a human experience, but for me, it's like I literally can't work if it's not something I care about. And now I'm starting to realize that that's probably a little bit more special interest, demand avoidance esque, which I very much have. But he was like, "Oh, you clearly just never been poor enough," like, which is true. I mean, I've got all the privilege in that element, but at the same time, I feel like if I really was struggling financially, which I have, it still wouldn't be enough. No one, I mean, it doesn't matter how rich or poor you are, no one wants to work just to work.
Oh,
We
absolutely.
want to work to have meaningful lives and to feel valued and to have a purpose, right? I just feel like mine's a little bit more extreme, maybe.
I don't think you're judged. I actually met with someone yesterday and we had a similar coffee, and
Yeah.
she was really open and shared her experience of earlier careers. She's now had a career change, just saying how much she struggled and was a very high achiever and a very intelligent lady, but went down a path and then just realized how it didn't suit her interests. Yes, she might have been good at it, but she didn't get anything back from it. And she said the same in hindsight. Look, I was suffering from anxiety. I was quite depressed, and is now so grateful that in time she's come to where she's working now, and doing an amazing job and set up her own successful company as well. And I think, as you say, not everyone is fortunate enough to choose an area. I think a lot of people that work within the disability or healthcare space are often, underpaid for sure. It's work that we do because we love what we do. We want to advocate. We generally want to create change,
Yes.
and it attracts the right people often for for that reason as well, which I think it's a great thing. If you can be in a position, and we've all had jobs that haven't worked out for various reasons, but that's another part I think that's been quite nice as we grow and we change and we reflect to go, where am I happiest? And I think when you're happiest, you work harder. You're happy to put in the extra hours and to go above and beyond because you enjoy the work. And if it's, affecting in a positive way your mental health and well-being, to me, it's just a win-win-win.
Yeah, I agree. I think that raises an interesting point, though, because I have experienced the flip side in jobs where I loved the work so much that I really struggled to set boundaries and was just working 24/7 and ended up burning out after a year. And I think that's something to be aware of as well, is that it's so important to do jobs that, are meaningful for us. But at the same time, if you are that passionate about your work, which is so, so great, and God, I hope more people have that experience in life because it's just life affirming, right? You really do need to learn the balance and the boundaries and still keep your health decently. That's a terrible sentence.
I'm probably guilty of that myself.
Yeah.
but I think, as you say, the key is health. And I think what's great is a lot of organisations offer flexibility. So sometimes it's also going, there might be moments in the day where I'm not working at my best, but you might come to life at night, or you might have a young family and you might have school commitments. And I think a lot of organisations get more from their employers when they have that flexible approach.
Definitely.
And that's been one of the beauties
of COVID.
COVID, yeah, it's created a lot of issues and challenges, absolutely. But
Silver lining.
yeah,
It's been a huge blessing in my life, absolutely. And I really hope that post-COVID, if that exists, all of the amazing flexible work practices that have come in stay there, like regardless of a pandemic, regardless of germs. Let's keep them happening because I just think they are the future of work, right? Is that flexible, inclusive, adaptable workforce.
100%. And again, it's taking the time to realize that each individual, again, is going to have different preferences. I'm working with a lot of
True.
agencies at the moment that have those mandates, again, to get staff into the office, say, for example, 3 days a week. And that can be really challenging because research has shown that overall we are seeing higher productivity rates. Yes, perhaps on the flip side, there has been increased burnout, but we're learning to adapt. I guess the challenge is creating that team culture and what that looks like as well. But
True.
I do think it needs to be a case by case basis. And again, that awareness piece that for some neurodivergent individuals, they're now living their best lives. They can create a work environment that allows them to focus, that allows them to thrive, and so forth. They don't have to worry about peak hour traffic and commute and so forth, So there are so many positives from that perspective. So I think the next 12 months will be really telling. And I think, again, just like we were talking earlier, it has to be continually reviewed.
Definitely.
You can't say a one-stop shop, this is going to affect everyone with this blanket approach. And it has to be reviewed, talk to your staff, notice changes. And if you suddenly notice heightened stress or anxiety, has coming back into the office triggered for that individual as well? What can we do differently? Is it actually really important that they come in 3 days a week, or what does that look like? And again, having those conversations around that and that awareness that it's not going to work for everyone.
Yeah, and I like how you said that because I think another thing that applies to everyone is with this positive move towards managing wellness and mental health at work is sometimes, and a lot of times, people think they know what that looks like. And especially with neurodivergent folk, it's not always the obvious answer. So, some people might say, oh, go on a holiday or have some leave or whatever you want to call it. But maybe all they needed was, I don't know, to work from home or to do a little bit more of this type of work and a little bit less of that type of work. Like, let's keep it an open dialogue where they're asked, I want to feel like I can go to my boss and say, I'm stressed, I'm struggling. And then instead of my boss saying, okay, well, you need to take leave because we can't handle people having mental breakdowns, why can't they turn around and I hope this is becoming more normal and say, okay, how can I support you? What's the best way we can put some frameworks in place that makes you feel like you can keep going, and just keep it a very broad, and it just keeping it in that open-ended question is, I think, so important for all workers, but especially neurodivergent workers who might really just need a certain tweak to their work to be able to go back to being at a healthy sort of wellness level.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, again, all of us kind of experienced at one stage that burnout, that fatigue, that COVID fatigue, because it was just this
Yes.
constant roller coaster and emotions, and
Right.
the media portraying it in a certain light and so forth. And I feel like we're coming out of that fog now, so it is that perfect opportunity, as you say, to have
True.
those discussions again and make it meaningful. Have these one-to-one conversations and see where it leads to from that perspective.
Yeah, I totally agree. Going back to rejection sensitivity, which is obviously something that
We did digress.
yeah, to digress. No. Oh, no, that wasn't digressing. That was great conversation. But I had another question on rejection sensitivity. So what I was thinking about rejection sensitivity, and this is probably not a really obvious link to it, but for me, on the flip side of rejection sensitivity, I have thrived in jobs that have been very safe and affirming. So, for example, I had a boss once who she was quite a slow talker, and my hyperactivity is like chat.
Yeah.
I can't wait for you to finish your sentence. I'm impulsive, so I'll cut you off, and that's really hard for me to control. I can control it, and I usually mostly control it if I'm with someone who obviously hates it or is irritated by it, which I can pick up on, despite what people think about autistic people not being able to read social cues. And she always talked like this. And I adored her. She was a great boss. And I would always cut her off. And she never cared. She was so positive about it. It was just, there was no judgment. There was no annoyance. There was no anger. I mean, I feel like that's quite rare.
I should say, I think you did have a great gem there.
Right? She was brilliant. And most of the time it was because when I generally finish someone's sentence, 90% of the time I'm on the money of what they're trying to say. So generally she'd just be like, yes, and then move on. And so it wasn't really like I'm jarring her thoughts. And I'm not saying everyone has to be like this. That's, I think, quite unique. But what I'm saying with this example is that I think if we can, in a way to manage rejection sensitivity and build trust for neurodivergent staff, I think we need to proactively try to make them feel safe enough to unmask and be themselves at work, because it's all those microaggressions and micro discrimination behaviors that you might not think they see, but we see. If you're getting shitty because we're asking too many questions, or because we're taking things too literally, or whatever it is, that stuff builds up. And that's kind of why rejection sensitivity exists, right? Is that you just get so many little niggles that you're like, I'm going to explode.
Yeah, that's right.
So I think, for me, I want to be able to work for someone who I feel safe enough to be myself and not be judged for it. I mean, you can get annoyed sometimes, that's fine. But overall, to feel like you're in an environment where you're accepted for who you are, regardless of how different or slightly irritating or quirky or whatever you want to call it, that might be.
Well, that's, I think, ultimately one of the biggest driving factors for success for neurodivergent employees is having an understanding manager.
Yeah.
That's the reality. We want, particularly say from a recruitment lens, if I'm ever helping onboard and find talent for an organization, one of the first things I'll say is, have you identified the manager? The last thing you want is for a role to be available, but the managers who have not been involved in the discussions and to be tapped on the shoulder and kind of, surprise, you're going to have this new employee in your team. You want, on the flip side, to run a training program,
Yeah.
That awareness session, and to see at the end, is anyone interested in becoming involved, and to have people that proactively get it, that want to learn, that will put up their hand and say, I don't know everything, but I want to come on this journey with you.
Mm-hmm.
That's when we get the best results. And they're the managers, again, like you were saying earlier, that ask the right questions, not just for the neurodivergent individual in their team,
For everyone.
but for everyone. And then we get these great outcomes, and we get this amazing, retention rate as well. And I think if we go right back to the beginning of the conversation, one of the things you talked about was, as we said, there's sometimes this focus on recruiting neurodivergent talent, which again, I think is really
So important.
And we talked about retaining talent. But as we started talking about, what does retaining talent look like? And we talked about some of those touch points. But I think, again, what organizations like Employ for Ability, and again, there's many out there that do similar, is that ongoing support, and that education piece is gently interwoven. So it's not your stereotypical training in a room or online, but it's often those coaching and mentoring sessions, and being proactive and reactive. So depending on the situation,
Mm.
and working through certain elements that become available in the workplace, and then talking through what could you do differently, what type of strategies can you implement. And I think often if we have that type of support, ideally for the first 6 to 12 months of that new employee's time, everyone becomes a winner. You get
Yes.
that retention rate, you get a manager that gets how to support individuals and can hopefully apply those basic, I guess, best practice principles across all of
Mm.
their work. And you have an employee that feels valued and therefore thrives as well. So I'd love
Definitely.
to see that happen more as well, to actually go, not just are we, sourcing talent, but what mechanisms are in place to make sure that individual thrives, and what can we learn from those situations as well. And again, I think that's where we get that long-term success and those benefits that ripple through the organization.
Oh, I totally agree. That sort of makes me think of another thing about, I don't know, you've probably heard this because you're a employment nerd like me, but you know how they say women, studies show that women will not apply for a job unless they tick all 5 boxes, whereas men will apply if they tick even 3. But pulling it into, I guess, a neurodivergent lens is, for me, in my own experience and what I've heard from my neurokin, is that I think it's even more of a, it's almost like, I'll bring it back to me because I obviously don't speak for all our community, but it's hard, I think, and it's important about, I'm trying to get to career progression, right? And leadership.
Yeah.
So in order to make us leaders and give us opportunities, I think organizations need to be aware that we potentially need more help with like career coaching and knowing what opportunities we can go for, or how to develop skills into the direction we want to head, a little bit more so than, say, women need and other minorities need, from all the research backing that. I think that it would be good for organizations to, do all the things we've spoken about and, recruit well, retain well, value your employees, support them in every way, but equally empower them to grow and succeed. I mean, at the end of the day, growth is the opposite to, trauma and safety, survive, flight, freeze type of thing. We want growth, open-mindedness. We want to be able to reach the opportunities that for so long have been so hard for us to do in our authentic way because of the environment that has existed that's changing.
Yeah, to get to the top without masking, to get to the top
Exactly.
and to stand proud and to be able to share those stories,
Exactly.
um, is the key. But again, what something you touched on, the way my brain works, I'm jumping
Yeah, I
back
love it.
again.
Do it. Do it.
I have keep up with me.
ADHD is people.
Yeah, it's kicking in. It's kicking in. So is the coffee.
Yay.
One of the things you said to me just before was the fact that stereotypically a lot of women will read a job description. I think the essence there and the messaging as well is from a neurodivergent lens. We have major barriers with those job descriptions for neurodivergent.
Oh, I completely
We
agree.
think about how they're written and the jargon and the terminology, and we have these stipulations of the must have qualifications. And I can assure you, you pick up one now and you do a Google search, the first one that comes up, it will tell you need excellent communication skills.
Yes, so
Well, we
true.
both know that a lot of neurodivergent individuals will very openly and honestly admit that perhaps they haven't got excellent communication skills, and they might tick every other one of those qualifications or must haves, but because they can't do that, it's that black and white literal thinking that they might not apply. So that's where we have these barriers. Before we even talk about that interview stage, we have barriers. We have resumes and CVs that don't necessarily accurately reflect our skills. We don't have that opportunity to explain why there's big gaps or why a particular employment only lasted 3 months because it
Mm,
clearly perhaps wasn't the right environment for that individual, or it perhaps was not meaningful employment as well. And then if we're lucky enough to jump through the barrier of the job advert and so forth, and the CV screening, and we get to an interview, then again we know that there's all these
true.
hurdles and barriers. So I guess, and I'm sure you'll agree,
Yeah,
what else we need to see is that realization that we need to move away from these traditional recruitment barriers and to actually recognize how much amazing talent organizations are missing out on at the moment because of the fact that they're still using this traditional recruitment lens.
I couldn't agree more.
And it frustrates me greatly. And again, I love that we're starting to see organizations celebrate these different pathways. And there's not,
True.
everyone takes a slightly different approach, but I guess the common element in the way a lot of organizations are trying to proactively get ahead of the game is actually identifying again what strengths individuals have and how can we actually showcase those skills in a practical capacity
Mm.
that's relevant for the job. And again, I love that that's also where sometimes that journey and education piece commences for the organization and for talent and people and culture and so forth, because they're actually going, wow, on paper, I'll be honest, I might not have ever given this individual a chance when I looked at their CV, but they have been able to demonstrate meaningful capacity
Mm.
to do this role, and giving that opportunity for creativity. You don't necessarily have to present back the project or the task in a set way. It might be that they create a PowerPoint presentation, they create a physical working model, they create a website. Let's see how we can harness those talents. And I can assure you, many a times I've had an employer go, wow,
Mm.
this has just blown my mind. And now you start to
Amazing.
fear how
You
much
missed out.
talent
Yeah,
you've missed
exactly.
out
Yeah,
on
eye-opening.
by tweaking that process. So I hope again in Australia we start to see
Yeah.
those opportunities. Sometimes I think there's still pushback from HR. I get some really excited managers saying, I want to do this. I recognize, I value neurodivergent talent, but they're unfortunately often get halted in that process because of HR. And we can't do that because we've
Mm.
always done it this way and so forth. But
Very rigid.
I'm hoping that we start to see a change, that we start to be able to actually provide
Mm.
avenues to do things a little bit differently and then to celebrate, I guess, that success
I agree.
from that perspective and to see the learnings. And we can teach soft skills. There's something that, again, they can be taught, those unwritten rules of the workplace, the social etiquette and so forth, that not all individuals might have. And then we piece that together with that education piece and that awareness of this individual might not make eye contact with you, but
Mm.
the reason why is that they're actually processing what you're saying and so forth, or this individual might be masking.
Yeah, they're not being rude.
Yeah, that's right. But again, it seems so obvious for you and
I
I
know,
because
but
we
for that,
work
yeah, I know.
in this space. But sometimes they're saying this individual might not pick up on body language when you signal and look at your watch that you need to wrap up the conversation. They might completely miss that
Oh,
cue
yeah.
and continue to follow you.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, and that's masking in a nutshell is that I prefer absolutely not to look you in the eye because I'm trying to think and listen, and that takes so much more away from that. It's not for me. I don't really find eye contact painful, which is a common stereotype of autism. I just don't find it useful. Like it's just distracting, and yet the microaggressions I've experienced my whole life of when I haven't given eye contact and people overtly look pissed off and start to trying to like walk away from a conversation that was previously going really well just based on the eye contact, no changes. It's that sort of thing that I think knowing these things would really help. You just let people be themselves and be different. It's not that hard.
Embrace difference,
Embrace
absolutely.
difference. Exactly. Oh, I could talk to you all day. It's just thank you so, so much. It's so great to pick your brain.
I've loved it. So I could keep
Oh,
going as
thank
well. It seems
you.
like we think the same way, which is nice.
Yes, we're definitely on the same wavelength. The other thing I wanted to ask you about, not ask, I kind of wanted to raise this as something. Is this something that you notice? Because something for me, I guess, is being such an honest person and valuing honesty as one of my very key core values always has been, and social justice and such. One of the things I've struggled with in my career is being able to talk myself up because I own and this is a thing that what you were just saying really triggered this in me was I think neurodivergent people are very quick to talk themselves down and to undersell themselves, and that makes sense after a lifetime of basically being told by the world that you're weird or different or whatever you want to call it, whatever labelist term. But for me, it was very much I felt so physically uncomfortable with stretching any truth. And a lot of job applications and recruitment, it is selling yourself. Like it's not lying, but it's also a gray area of maybe making yourself sound a little bit better than you truly were or that you think you were, because I think how I view myself is always far worse than everyone else does. Is that something that you experience with your clients?
So common, and even in its rawest form. So many individuals I work with actually don't have awareness of their amazing skills and strengths. So it's not about that, it's actually how to sell yourself, and actually acknowledging if you're asked a question like, for example, what do you like at Excel? Some individuals I work with say, oh, I'm okay. The reality is they're beyond advanced users of Excel. The way they can manipulate data and macros and use that information to tell a story, that's a gift.
Yes.
That's not something the average individual can do. But for a lot of individuals I work with, because it's come naturally and it's all they've done, it's actually honestly lacking that awareness of, oh, okay, so I do have some strengths here. I do have some gifts that I could bring to the organization. And it comes down to sometimes that filter and that unawareness. And it
Mm.
also comes down to perhaps not having the opportunity to transfer those skills into the workforce because they haven't been given that opportunity to experience employment. So how can those amazing skills, for example, we've worked with an individual who took part in what they claimed as ethical hacking.
Amazing.
Absolute masterminds that would sit in their bedroom and could bring down the highest of security walls for fun. Oh, we didn't do anything, it's harmless. Okay, how can we take those individuals that have this amazing skill, we could bring that to government organizations and use them in their cyber teams as well, but they haven't had work experience. A lot of individuals I work with don't even necessarily have a qualification or degree, but they've set up where they've bought on eBay or online, like computer servers, and their whole room is, blows my mind when I'm on a video call and I look in the background, or, from a young age, they've been tinkering and pulling
Mm.
things apart and putting them back together. But how do you put that on a
I
resume?
know, like, my special interest gave me a PhD in ABC, but I've got no qualifications for it. I'm just better than everyone at it. How do you say that?
Exactly, exactly. And that's again why, if we can start to actually go, okay, so how can I assess these skills, for you, Annie, in a different way? How can you actually
Hmm.
show me? So don't tell me what you can do, show me what we can do. And I think that's a different way of looking at it to help bridge that gap. I'm sure if, in your particular area of expertise, look, you're creating these amazing podcasts and so forth. That's not something that everyone can do, and to know how to edit and refine and so forth.
Mm.
How do you channel that skill? We see individuals that are fantastic on the social media and understanding the analytics and so forth. How do we
Mm.
channel that? And again, it comes back to what we talked about earlier. How do we identify neurodivergent individuals' special interests, and how do we use those to funnel it into a meaningful career? And as I said, often in my experience, those individuals become champions. They become subject matter
Yes.
experts. They have an interest to hyper focus and to absorb copious amounts of information on that topic because they enjoy it
True.
and so forth. So that's a long-winded answer saying,
No, I love it. So good.
how do we come back to that? So
Yeah.
let's hope that we in the future can see out of the box ways as well of assessing and identifying talent.
Yeah.
And as a result, we're going to see better retention rates and outcomes because of the fact that we have actually seen firsthand this individual is not telling me they can do it and selling it to themselves. They're actually showing me
Mm.
their impact that they could make within the organization and the degree in which they've actually understood the task at hand.
Yeah, and I hope that, neurodivergent people listening to this can resonate with this and can maybe even just reflect on their own talents and learn to really or seek help with how to sell themselves, because we are full of talent and sometimes we just need to know how to sell it in a neurotypical way.
Advocate, as we said before, I think learning to advocate, actually stopping and
Exactly.
learning about what makes you brilliant. Also identifying, yep, what are my challenges, but actually going, what do I enjoy? What do I excel at? Ask people. If you're not sure, ask your mum, ask your friend, ask an ex-colleague for some honest
Yes.
advice on where your strengths are, because sometimes we can't see it ourselves, and we might find we get some really insightful information that we
So
can sit
true.
on, reflect on, and then again channel that into our job search.
Absolutely. I have one more question for you,
Sure.
and I probably left a difficult one to the end. Well, I guess when you're dealing with organizations and supporting them to support neurodivergent talent, how many of them not so many how many of them, but is there quite a trend to put autistic people in maybe more stereotyped roles like STEM, or I mean STEM's probably the most obvious one. One thing that I really hope doesn't happen is that people want to put us in these boxes and think, oh well, we're really good at IT, so let's all become, you know, hackers and gamers. And I know David talks about this and creativity and such, but I guess for me, to be truly inclusive as a workforce, we need to be able to access all
Yeah.
jobs, not just ones that might look outwardly like they would benefit our specific skill set or neurotype.
I think so. And again,
Yeah, I was curious what you thought.
a great question. So again, something I'm really passionate about. I think the reality is that we do have a lot of individuals who are neurodivergent that do enjoy IT related work. And I think that's where it originally stemmed from. And it
True.
was a great positive.
Haha, STEM. Good pun.
You know what I mean? I
Yeah.
personally, no interest at all, absolutely useless as well. But I think where it literally came from was this concept that we did have a lot of individuals who had an active interest in that space. And we know historically that we do get success. So if we're ever piloting a recruitment, neurodiverse recruitment program, we know that we get success. One, we know there's a lot of roles because there's a skills shortage.
True.
And two, we know that we get success. So we call that like a safe landing place. We know we're going to get success when an organization wants to dip their toe in the water and just see what it's like. My hope is, and something I'm really trying to advocate for, is absolutely demonstrating and singing the praises that neurodivergent individuals can exceed and have succeeded in a really wide variety of roles.
Yep.
We need those roles available. And again, it's about working backwards,
Definitely.
getting to know the individual, what makes them tick, where do their strengths lie, what does an ideal role look for them, and then looking at kind of job carving and working backwards to match that individual. And in the same boat, I want to see higher representation of neurodivergent women as well,
Yes.
because we're still seeing a high rate of applicants from individuals who are neurodivergent that are male. We know those females are there. We need to spread the word. We
Where are
need
you,
to
women? Get
start
out of
seeing
the
these
covers.
neurodivergent women speak
Come
up.
out of the shadow.
Let us know. Comment on this podcast if you're a
Yes.
neurodivergent woman yourself as well, because we need to start putting our hands up, not being ashamed, and advocating, as I said, for ourselves as well. I've had a lot of success placing individuals into a wide range of roles, but I'm my own worst enemy in that I'm often so busy, I don't have an opportunity to stop and actually celebrate it.
Yep.
And to write case studies and to reflect, because you kind of hit the ground running. But
Yep.
that's on me, and I need to do that more. And I need to make sure I'm actually capturing.
Oh, you're too busy changing the system. That's
but we,
okay.
but that's the reality. It is actually happening.
Yeah, true.
But a lot of these bigger companies that are placing, IT talent, neurodivergent IT talent, they're getting the coverage. But we are having lots and lots of wins in roles like project management recently, where I've seen some amazing success. I talked about customer service, customer facing roles. We know that individuals have been successful in the performing arts. I've worked a lot with individuals who are creative geniuses, thinking graphic design, videography. You talked about love on the spectrum. I actually placed someone behind the scenes as an editor.
Amazing.
Who's neurodivergent, and from what I hear, keeping in touch with the producer, is still doing amazing results. And I love that as well.
I do too. I think that they've definitely come a long way in getting more neurodivergent people on the show and behind the scenes, which is great.
I just think in general, we have neurodivergent individuals coming into a really vast range of roles. So maybe that's on you and I to, for your next podcast, to interview someone that bucks that trend, someone that's openly disclosed that they're neurodivergent, and what type of role are they in. I'm supporting someone that I've known for a long time at the moment. A shout out to her. I hope she doesn't mind, but Kathy, I won't say her surname, but an absolute genius and very intelligent woman who I think really highly of.
Tell Kathy to come on the show. She can be anonymous if she wants.
Oh, I would love her to, and she would be amazing. She is a really successful author.
Amazing.
She runs one of Australia's most well-known and profitable vegan magazines as well. We need individuals like her, to showcase her strengths and her skills and so forth as well, and to start talking about some of the challenges she's experienced, but also some of the triumphs as well, because that's an area, magazine publishing, that we don't hear about enough. And I think she's made a really amazing impression in a positive way in Australia. And, that's just one story to highlight.
Amazing. Well, she's more than welcome on the show. Anyone actually listening, if you want to come on the show, hit me up. Happy to bring you on anonymously, promote your work. If you're a neurodivergent woman or even gender diverse person, I would love to promote you guys and share your brilliant stories. I guess we should wrap that up and I should let you get back to your very important work. Thank you so much for being here, Kate. I have just loved every minute of this conversation, and I know my listeners will get a lot out of it as well, just like I have. So thank you.
Oh, thank you for the kind words. It's been my pleasure. Thank you for doing what you're doing and creating this, I guess, this really important space and environment for people to learn and to connect. And, thank you for the advocacy work
No
you're
worries.
doing. We're all in this together and all kind of, I guess, fighting for that common goal about, creating neurodiverse workplaces and that inclusive environment to benefit all parties.
100%. Yeah. Thank you so much. Take care.
I really appreciate it. Thank you.
You too. Bye. Well, I hope you enjoyed our chat and can take some helpful tips away or even just feel seen and heard. A lot of what we talked about can apply to the general population, but are just more common in the neurodivergent experience at work. I share my own stories, mostly because I find examples helpful, but also to hopefully make my neurokin feel less alone in their struggles. I get multiple messages a day from women like me who share so many of these experiences. And although I don't love sharing the more difficult parts of my life, I do it for the benefit of you. Even if it helps one of you feel seen, it's worth it to me. I created this podcast as a platform to talk to incredible neurodivergent humans who I would want to hear from back when I received my diagnosis at 28 years old, and still do. Information is powerful, and so much of what is out there comes from a deficit-focused male lens. We need more stories from women and gender-diverse NDers. So, if you want to come on the show and share your journey or talk about the incredible work you're doing to help our community, please reach out on any of our socials. And if you're a neurodivergent human, as opposed to an alien, but we don't discriminate, join our Facebook group, Princess and the Pea Podcast Community, to connect with some awesome fellow autistic ADHD neurocurious friends. Next week, I'll be talking to an autistic ADHD psychologist all about therapy. So stay tuned. Over and out.